into theatre when I was very young. I was still in high school and I watched a play with Andrew Buckland and Lionel Newton. And yeah, I suppose back then we hadn't come so far with social media or media in general, but there was still TV and there were still movies, and I saw The Wellbeing was the play that I saw, directed by Lara Foote, and it really changed the way that I saw the world and the way that I saw storytelling, and the possibilities of storytelling. And I think that kind of was a definitive moment for me in terms of why I wanted to go into theatre, why I wanted to tell stories through theatre. Although theatre is not the only medium that I want to use. As a writer, I enjoy theatre, but I also enjoy writing for television, and I also enjoy writing books. I enjoy performing live because I think the immediacy of the work is just much more electric. It's much more connected. Having the audience right there, it's more of a dialogue, and so it's a more active form as opposed to, I suppose, television or film, where the audience member is much more passive and in terms of the way that they're receiving the work. I enjoy the fact that live performance, you've got the performer there. They're breathing, they're living. You can hear them coughing if they're sick or whatever. I think there's something quite magical about that. I don't know where South African theatre is going to. I suppose what's exciting at this very point is that people seem to have no limits on the possibilities of where it can go. So it seems to be everything that we've seen before kind of smooshed into one form, all happening at the same time. So you'll have dance with projection, with text, with clowning, and all of that in terms of telling one story, and that's quite exciting. And I think perhaps it's going to continue like that for a little while. And in terms of the stories are really sort of being whittled down, and we're telling quite simple stories, which is always interesting for me. I love to see relationships. I love to see how person A is relating to person B. Yeah, and I think the simplification of the stories without all the excess noise is quite nice. I think the most important thing as a performer is that you can't ever stop learning, because you're trying to tell a story as best you can, and it's that thing when you've done a show and like a month later you figure out how you were supposed to say that line, because you need to just sit in that piece, and you sit in that moment and you try and live it as much as possible, but sometimes you need to have lived another experience which only happens to you a month later. So I think the thing about being a performer is to know that you're never going to get it completely right, and to be okay with that, and to just tell the story as best you can. The type of work that I enjoy watching and that really speaks to me is work where relationship is explored. So I'm really interested in seeing how different people relate to each other, and whether that's set in a political landscape or set in a home landscape, or what all the other themes in the background are. For me, I'm most interested in the way that people connect, why they connect, and where the disconnect comes in. Yeah, those are the stories that I enjoy. At the moment, I'm quite excited by Kaelihle Dom Gumede. Comes to mind quite quickly, I suppose, because I just very recently watched Crepuscule. I think that he's got an intelligence about him that I haven't seen in many theatre makers. Let me put it that way. And that's quite exciting. I think the way that he sees the world is quite beautiful and interesting. And then emerging is such an interesting word, because you don't know if someone is emerging when they start in their 20s, or are they really emerging in their 30s. So, I wanted to talk about the younger people, but also people who are really sort of solidifying their voices more and more. So, so you've got the storytellers like I'm gonna just say Jacques de Silva. I think that he is slowly developing his voice as he's always been an actor, but he's now coming into strengthening his voice as a storyteller. And Mongi Mtombeni, I think we are kind of, I just feel myself just mentioning my friends' names, but I think that that's the work that we see most of. We get called in to watch or assist or give notes on our friends' work, so we are highly affected by what the people who are around you are doing. So Kyla Davis, Daniel Buckland, James Cairns. Maybe these aren't sort of typical emerging people because they're quite old, but I think that but they're also quite young in terms of a body of work. And I think they're still fine-tuning what it is that they're saying and how they're saying it. I suppose when we say women in theatre, it's quite a difficult situation, because I am a woman and I am in theatre and I do work fairly regularly. So it's not that there aren't roles, or it's not that there aren't exciting things happening, because there are. But I think the struggle for women in theatre is the struggle for women as it is in all sort of careers. It's the struggle of the woman, full stop, kind of, and then just how she deals with herself in the theatre world. In general, we are a less empowered, in a less empowered position, and less voiced, and maybe in that sense the theatre is quite an interesting space, because it's a space of expression, and it's a space where you need to be able to speak, and I think that's why disadvantaged people, women included, are really interesting in those spaces, because they hold this sort of all of these complexities, because they've got the vulnerability, and they've got their positioning within society that kind of wants them to be a certain way. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I suppose what I would really be interested in is when women are the actual storytellers, as opposed to just actors in a male whether it's written from a male view or directed with a male perspective. I think that the really interesting stuff is going to come out when we're looking at female writers and directors, because then you're seeing the view and perspective of the woman, as opposed to the actor telling the story of a man, or from a man's perspective, even though it could, you're a female performer. So I think and it's already started. I mean, if you look at Lara Foote and Claire Stopford, and we've got really strong female writers and directors in this country. And there's nothing sort of saying that women can't. But I do think, you know, it's the same challenges that face, again, to say, that face women in general. So, like, for example, once you've had a child, people are very nervous about hiring you. Because what are you going to do? You've got a child now, and is that going to be a real problem? What if your child gets sick? And you want to say, well, how many dads have you hired? And do you care if their child gets sick? Because they're also parents. And I think it's actually been harder on my husband than me, because I can say to someone, I've got a child, I need to leave at 5 o'clock. Whereas with him, and we co-parent, so when he is supposed to be with the child, people are like, but surely there's someone else to look after the baby. If I said I'm going to look after the baby, no one would say, but there's someone else to look after the baby. They'd be like, oh, shame, she's a mother, she has to. But a father, no, but you have to work. You're not supposed to be the one at home. And so he's found it actually quite hard to tell people, I can't come to work. We've made this agreement. Yeah, and I think women are used to just having to say, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. So we just have to be a little bit more brazen, because otherwise people won't listen to us.